Come on. If you're coming up, Rory. Good afternoon. It's Friday. Rory is doing his thing. He's feeling a bit sad today, and I don't entirely know why. Yes, we know. Little man. He's feeling very sad and giving me the face. And needing hugs. And he's not usually one. I mean, he occasionally comes and asks for hugs, and he likes a good bit of fuss if there's some going. But he's not normally this bad. I wonder if he's got a bit of an upset stomach or something. Nothing, rather than, yakking or pooping, I think it's just a case of not quite feeling right. And his sister is going to get a slap. Amy, out of there. Rory, I'm not going to be able to do this with you sitting there. No, I'm not. Anyway. What you can't see is, there's the dog nose. The dog nose is in my lap, isn't it? Yes. What I suggest for you, Rory, is you sit there, lie down. Lie down, little man. Yes, you, lie down. I put your pillow in. I did. There. You sit there, and because it's time for mummy things. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. No mauling. No mauling. We're not doing the mauling. There's no need to be mauled today. Right. Don't need those. So we go. So yes, the end of the week. The weekend has started. Been looking at various things as you do, and why are things so complicated? Don't need them to be this complicated. But I got my work phone working. Which was a good thing. Not that I intend to use it, but it's good because instead of having 2 laptops, I can use the phone for most of it. So it's the main reason for wanting it to work. Just now got to remember a stupidly complicated password. Doesn't quite feel right. Why is my phone now beeping? Oh, I see. Well, it is winter, you know that, right, phone? We're allowed to have snow and ice and stuff. For it is the season of the cold. there is a weather warning that we are potentially going to get some snow in the UK. We generally have pretty bland weather, so to the UK, getting 3 snowflakes is considered quite drastic. So we're, I think, on orange alert for snow. I mean, there's still frost on the grass, but, you know, they're acting like, you know, the second coming of Jesus or Armageddon or something. And it's gonna be a bit of, you know, if we get any, it will be a bit of friggin' snow. Some ice. And I'm not gonna say that ice isn't, you know, something to be worried about, because, you know, if you've ever seen half the people drive, of course it is something to be worried about. But it is winter. It is the time of sub-zero temperatures, sideways rain, and if it's not sideways rain, it's really cold rain, and if it's not cold rain, it's hail or snow. Snow doesn't generally settle too much in this country, so it might snow, but it won't stick. Which is kind of sad in my eyes, because I like snow. I absolutely love watching it snow, because it's so peaceful. When it rains, you hear the rain. When it hails, you absolutely hear it hail. When it's windy, you hear it being windy. When it's sunny, it is peaceful and it's beautiful. But of all the weathers that is weathering, that, you know, maybe, you know, it's not good for driving, sitting out in the garden kind of thing, snow truly is one of the most beautiful moments. Watching those big snowflakes fall from the sky gently, because they do, of course, fall much slower usually than anything else. And so I really do enjoy watching it snow. And I'd kill for a decent snowstorm. Not literally, of course. I mean, because obviously, well, first of all, removing part of the population would not make a difference to the snow. So, you know, it's not exactly worth it. But you know what I mean. I would love for it to snow. I am happy. And one of the other things, of course, is that once it has snowed, the world looks peaceful. That everything about snow just emanates peace for me. So, if you look at a freshly snowed landscape, it's peaceful because it's not disrupted by anything. It's not been, the snow's not turned to slush by the cars. You know, the fields are beautifully pristine white. The trees are beautifully pristine white. Everything is clean and peaceful looking, and so I love snow. And you get these memes on Facebook, TikTok, whatever, you know, cabin in the woods job. Could you stay here for a week for 100 grand? Darling, in a heartbeat, absolutely. It's the same as oh, could you not go out for a week? Honey, I haven't been out since, like, July last year. What do you mean a week? You amateur, you know. It's... I'm a creature of habit. Now, obviously, I do like my internet and my dogs, who are currently now having the bean. Assume Rory's feeling a bit better about himself, seeing as he instigated this. So I do apologise for the racetrack sounds you may hear in the background, and any casual yelling of me. So yes, but it's Friday. It's a good thing. I am still trying to play Path of Exile 2. I still royally suck at it. But, as I said to someone on Facebook the other day, you don't have to be good at something to enjoy it. You just have to enjoy it. And I quite like playing Path of Exile. 1 or 2 for that matter. Kind of like 2 because it's newer. Getting quite a pro at the very early levels. Getting pretty good at those. But then this is how I generally operate with games, is I spend a lot of time doing early levels. I get bored of it after that. But for some reason, the starting of a new character and you know, it making its way in the world, I find fun. I'm not really in it for the end game. I'm not really in it to be the biggest, the best, or whatever. I just enjoy starting them. I mean, in my EverQuest days, I didn't add anybody. So how did that work? 1, 2, 3. How are there... Oh, that's because you were supposed to come out. So 1, 2, 3. That's why it didn't work. Because I didn't take you out to add you in at the end. But yeah, in my EverQuest days, I had 4 or 5 accounts with like 12, 14 characters each. And some of them were reasonably high level, don't get me wrong. But to me, the fun was making a new character. And I've always kept my characters separate, so none of this twinking thing where you know, oh, I found this on my bigger character and you can use it. Here, you know, off you go. No, you have to earn your own way, do your own thing. Earn your own money, you know. No bank of mum and dad kind of thing. And so they might as well be in each individual accounts as far as I'm concerned. Every character is very much its own thing. It's harder to do in Path of Exile. Simply because well, it is only a shared bank. So you end up kind of doing 1 tab per character. But that's the thing. And in Branch of Exile, someone once said a very, very wise set of stuff, which was if you need a lot of tab space, you're doing it wrong. As a whole, unless it's valuable and you can sell it on the trade market. Hang on. Why are you keeping it? What are you keeping it for? Your character's going up in levels, not backwards in levels. So if you're not going to use it now, or either you can use it in the future, or you don't need it. And then if you need it in the future, well, chances are that future's not that far away, because like a lot of games, they don't drop sort of like, you know, level 60 stuff in level 1 zone. So chances are you're not far off ready to need it. So, you know, you might as well carry it around, because surely in a couple of minutes you'll be needing it. And it sounds like a stupid thing to say, but it is actually quite true. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking of the rather full tabs that I've got on my account, and I'm not going to use most of it. I can't even tell you what half of it is. It's not worth anything, I don't think. And I don't really do trade, so I'm not keeping anything for selling. And if I can't use it myself, why am I keeping it? You know, it's kind of... Never mind. I need to do a stick. 1, 2, 3, 4. What you doing, doggy dogs? Hmm. Silent dogs are nearly worrying as silent children. Yes. Now I haven't got enough. Because I'm stupid. Come on, Rory. Come on. Get on with it, hound. Just get your butt up here. How have I see how I've done it. Okay, so stupidity is rife, clearly, this afternoon. And I am a danger to my lace, but there we go. But here we are. My back's already going, I don't like this. It's going to be one of those days, people. It's going to be one of those days. Right, so we unpin this because I'm stupid. So, what did I do wrong? Well, in short, I didn't drop some off. I didn't add some at the other side. And so basically, I screwed it up. So let's go. You need to sod off out of it. You need to be shorter. How can my back not be happy? What can I do to cheer it up? So yes, here we be on Friday. What's the matter, Rory? What are you looking? What are you seeing? Today was one of those days where you look at the clock and it's like, I don't know, 9 o'clock. You do lots of things that normally take a really long time. You look at your clock and it's 9:02. And you're like, no. So by about 10:30 this morning, I was, it can't still be Friday. Mind you, when I started work, because I started work at 7 o'clock this morning, I was convinced that it could not be Friday because no one else was here. You know, there's me logged into work and no one else was there, and it's kind of like, geez, Friday, right? So, apparently the cold gives us beans because we can be really excited and not get too hot. This is quite traditional with dog, to be honest. As long as it's not wet and horrible, cold tend to give them the bean because they can run around and chase and do stupid things without getting too hot. What? Now, we ask this nearly every time we do one of these patches, which way am I going to do this? Now, because this is a 5 rose ground square, where for example these are 5 across, 4 down, so 1 square shorter, you can't save bobbin space, you know, pairs of bobbins dangling around, by going either direction. Whereas if you go downwards here, you've only got 4 working squares, rather than 5 working squares where there's 4 more bobbins. So I know it's only 4 more bobbins, but you know, space is a premium sometimes. What you doing, puppies? I hear mischief in silence. I do. Hello, Amy. I know you both too well. Silence is not golden with you unless I can see you asleep. In which case, silence is golden. Come on, settle down. This happens every week. Stop hanging surprised. apologise for the yawns. In fact, I should do the reasonable thing and turn you on. Oh look, Twitch ads in a couple of minutes. This is your 2-minute warning that there will be a 3-minute break, approximately, in a couple of minutes. And you can make use of that to go get tea, coffee and go for a pee and all those kinds of things. Let the dog out, shout at your partner, whatever you need to do. And then we'll be back. I'm of course not going anywhere. I am prepped up, hopefully for the stream, unless someone rings the doorbell. But that's not always predictable. Because once again, Amazon Prime, order shit. I'll be hearing one of them came up, Amazon Prime, didn't really think too much of it, click, bought. Yeah, it will be here by the 3rd of March. How's that Amazon Prime? So I cancelled that because, well, if I didn't need it till March, I could have waited, you know. Twisted, so you are around that. Let's see. You two sit over there a minute. Seriously, brain cells. 2 minutes ago you were cold. Now you're claiming there isn't enough oxygen. I just can't wait. Damn. someone on Facebook mentioned to me that these squares look very Incan, and to be honest, I was very touched by that, because I've always found, I mean, I was always interested by the idea of the Incans, because they knew a lot, lived in the middle of the Amazon, and, you know, obviously died out long before. But they seem to know an awful lot of things that we've lost. A bit like the Egyptians to an extent, but and don't get me wrong, I quite like them too. But there was always something about the Incans, and you know, the tales of cities of gold, and you know, all those kind of fable things, that it just fascinated. The idea of it all kind of fascinated me, and I've never really looked into it because I don't want my heroes burnt, if you know what I mean. Oh, Jesus, so I was really quite pleased when someone said that it looked Incan, because although that's not what I was thinking of when I made it, it is the kind of thing that I would like. And so the fact that someone sees that in this did make me smile. And what does not make me smile are whiny dogs. So far I've looked out, and every time I've looked out about what she's whining about, there's been literally nothing. Because I can look on my phone. Oh, my neighbours are going out. Big whoop! One of my neighbours, or both of my neighbours, I can't be bothered to snoop in their car that tightly, is going out. They are permitted to do so. It's not COVID, they're not, bound to stay in their house forevermore. Although, like me, they kind of are hermits a bit. But, hey me, little one. Your whiningness is not an assistance in this matter. No, it's not. Really is not. Does not help anybody. And I do not need alerting because they're going out. Or when they come back, for that matter. For they are entering and exiting their own property. And even if they park on mine, they're allowed, okay? Because I've given them permission to do so. That way, their visitors can park on their driveway and everybody can still get in and out. Because I have room for two, and there's only me, and my car doesn't work. So at the moment, it's not going anywhere. So it doesn't even matter if they box it in. Okay, so it's just not a thing to be worrying about. There are far worse things in the world. That felt like an awful lot of them. Let's undo that. Yeah, something about this didn't quite feel right. Let's try that again. I always puzzle when I come to undo things and it doesn't seem to be the reverse of what I did. So, should start with twist, cross, twist, cross, twist. That's all we need. You fucking annoying dog. You were literally just behind me. Come on. Come on, Rory. Come on. You literally only just got down. Yes, you did. I've ordered some calming tablets for her ladyship here. Because, 9 times out of 10, Rory and I will be settled down somewhere. Not necessarily asleep, but, settled down, comfortable, not nodding off, but, really peaceful, watching some telly, The world is passing by and we're completely oblivious. And it's almost like she wants us to keep alert, so she feigns things happening. Now, I honestly believe she thinks she's heard something, but the truth of the matter is it's 99% of the time there is literally nothing. It's ants farting in Nova Scotia or something, and nobody cares. So I don't care if someone got in a car 3 roads over. I really, really don't. I don't care if a cat walked across 6 gardens away. I don't care if a cat walks across my garden, to be honest. So can we dial back on the, Twitch-a-thon? And the problem is because when she goes to lie down, she doesn't just get up and lie down like he does. She does the trample grass thing. So trample, 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 flop. Spring! Literally, can you just sit still? So it gets a bit wearing, and so I would dearly love it if she would quit it. So I have bought her some calming tablety things that are supposed to be good for dogs who, leap like the world is ending because some dude walked past their house, To be honest, if she ends up a little bit kind of a spark coming out of it, I won't be too worried by that. That's, there's definitely worse things. So if he keeps her quiet and chills her out a little bit and stops her leaping because, an ant walked past the house, it can only be a good thing. It's very hard to love a dog who will not sit still and who keeps leaping up and acting like someone's trying to break through the front door or something, and it's like, you do know there's nothing there, right? It's like my neighbour's going out. Then the next house over, it's a detached house, so it's not like it joins onto mine. It's not like them slamming the door shakes the house, or I didn't even hear them. Now, admittedly, I've got an ear pod in one ear so that I can hear you lot if you talk to me. But I ain't got any music in it, so I'm sitting here in silence. And I didn't hear nothing, so it's not to be worried about. I know you guys hear music, but I don't. I play it especially for you. Yes, I heard that. I did actually hear that one. Don't know who it was, but I did hear that one. You dogs are proving annoying. What it sounded like is that my neighbour, only one went out, one is still at home, and they came out and put something in their rubbish bin. It was no more exciting than that. Maybe it was their dog for being annoying. Because she licks and bites her paws. She's also only a little French bulldog. been watching a series called The Resident, and it really feels like some of the writers of The Residents were the same people who did Grey's Anatomy, because some of the stories have basically been exactly the same with different stuff. And sometimes closer than others, but, you know, there's been some very strong similarities between some of the episodes. But there's also another medical drama going on, and I can't think the name of it off the top of my head. Hang on, let me quickly look. So if I go back... You're not just gonna... Let's try that then. It's gonna be awkward. New Amsterdam, that's the other one. And for some reason they feel hollow. The main male actor in The Resident just has a face that feels distant. And it's not because he's a bad actor, but you look at his face and it's just not... It doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel... You know, you sometimes look at some actors. I mean, obviously half the decent ones seem to be dead these days. But some actors, whenever they played something, you absolutely believed that they were capable of being the exact person in the film. Whether it's Tom Cruise... I mean, he's an arrogant little shit. But he's a mighty fine actor. And if you watch him, I mean, nearly every film, he plays a overconfident, arrogant little shit. Because, well, at 5'0", he is. But he's also highly successful, good at playing the arrogant little shit. And then you watch Last Samurai. And in it, he is humble. In it, he is so unlike himself. And it really is shocking to see him in a completely different light. Because nearly every character he's ever played has basically been an arrogant little shit. Even whether he played Jack Reacher, who's supposed to be 6'2", or whether he, you know, he's... yeah, I'm sure he played Reacher. But, yeah, he did. You know, it's... Whether it's Mission Impossible, whether it's in Rain Man, whether it's, you know, Risky Business, Cocktail, he's always been... Basically, his character's always been an arrogant little shit. And it's worked out well for him. He does really well in it. And so to see someone like Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai is very, very different. But in all of them, you can feel... I mean, if you watched some of the Mission Impossible films, and you remember, the man is 60 doing his own stunts. The guy is in phenomenal shape. Is he intelligent? Who knows, right? I mean, you know, he's obviously capable of learning a script and pulling it off, so he must be of a decent intelligence. But, you know, as an actual human being and person, Tom Cruise, the individual, who knows? Whereas some actors, you can tell that they are just, you know, dumbing it down for the film or whatever, right? But for whatever reason, both New Amsterdam, who's got Martha from Doctor Who, and it feels empty. It feels like a TV series. It feels like this is a story. These people have been paid money to show it to you. it does not feel genuine. It doesn't feel involving. It doesn't feel... Now, not all of the actors are as bad. But, for example, there's a guy in The Resident, other than the core guy, who is known as the Raptor. And he's this huge coloured guy. Who, frankly, is very intelligent. At least in the programme, I assume. And the actor does pull it off well. So, I'd like to assume he's, you know, at least close. Anyway... My brain cannot get over how much he looks like a cross between the huge coloured guy in Mission Impossible and the guy who played Joe Coffrey in The Green Mile. But but I also know all three are different people, but my brain can't see them apart. And I think a lot of it is because the character, the humour that they all play has similarities. That there is, you know, it's almost like, you know, they're three brothers or something. That, you know, that they are really similar people. And it's really bad because I've been watching this and my brain keeps saying, so he's the guy from Mission Impossible. No, he's not. He's played by a completely different bloke. And if you actually pull up a picture of them side by side, they're not actually even that similar. But my brain, it's a bit like when you meet someone and your brain, and they kind of go, hi, my name's Karen. And you go, sorry, what? No, that can't be your name. Sorry, it doesn't fit. It's that kind of, no, I'm sorry, I don't take that in. I don't believe you. You must be mistaken, you know. And it is. It feels exactly that. It's the, I'm sorry, my brain does not believe you. Please try this input again. You know, it's, yeah. But for some reason, I don't know whether it's because we've got to a point where, you know, because as British people, we now see quite a few American series, and you know, 26 episodes a series and all of this kind of stuff. They've kind of run out of ideas, so they all seem a bit samey, you know. Whether it was 9/11, The Fire People, or whether it's, you know, New Amsterdam, Grey's Anatomy, you know, oh, he's got a bomb in him, you know, whatever, right? Oh, she fell and banged her head and nearly drowned, and oh, we thought they were dead, you know, all of this kind of stuff. It just feels like it's like the film industry. Why is it our film industry keeps re-outputting films that we've already got a number of copies of, and not making new films out of the plethora of books that are available on the subject, you know? We don't have to keep remaking Batman, for example. We really, really don't. As a kid, I say a kid, I was 16. You literally just got off, dog. You annoying little turd. Come on. Put some effort in. Come on. Thank you. We'd been watching the, you know, kind of George Clooney and thingy Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer played the different Batman things, right? And then The Dark Knight came out. And you're like, I have literally just watched a series of films on Batman, and you know, it's almost like, you know, one Friday, you know, part 3 of the first Batman, you know, the I don't know, I think it was the one with Arnie and Poison Ivy and stuff in it, and had just come out. The following week, The Dark Knight came out, and you're like, I literally saw a Batman film last week. You know, can we not find something else? And there are some really good stories out there. It's not that there aren't good stories in books that would, you know, that it's not like they wouldn't make great films. But we just seem to keep remaking the same crap, and that's not what I meant to do with that. It's just... We just do. We just constantly make the same films over and over, you know. We did the same with Fantastic Four. So, Fantastic Four with the guy who played American Soldier. You know, that came out. It was a really well done bit of Fantastic Four. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was great. They made Silver Surfer. Great. And then, about a year later, out comes the Fantastic Four with completely different people in it. And the whole story starting again. And it didn't really work. In fact, it was a bit of a flop. Why could you not pick another comic? Why could you not, you know, could you really not find anything else? Now, obviously, Marvel and DC are never going to overlap specifically because, well, they've each got their own sets of characters. But it would be almost like Marvel doing an Iron Man movie and not telling anyone, and so they've just about started it, and me deciding, pretending I'm a film company, that I want to make a film about Iron Man, and me making an Iron Man movie. We take about the same amount of time making it, and we kind of kick it off at the same time, and it's like, one of you's always going to lose. And it becomes the VHS Betamax kind of thing, where it doesn't mean the better one wins, just means the one with the better backing or the better PR or the better whatever won. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, I do wish that the film industry would be a little bit more varied in their stories. And also, please realise, film industry, that just because we really liked Star Wars, we didn't need 20 other films based on Star Wars, because we're bored of it now. It's a bit like films and Aliens and Prometheus that I mentioned the other day. The idea of wanting to make a prequel or a sequel or, you know, any of the sort wasn't necessarily wrong. But when you screwed it up, don't keep making more of them. You know, just because it's got Alien in it and you know people will come because they're really hoping you did better this time. Can you not, you know? It just seems very rare to see a new movie that is not about something or excessively similar to something recently else that came out. Or it's just shit. I raise you A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2. I want to gouge my eyeballs out thinking that that's, you know, even a thing. I can't stand it. It's a horrendous film. It's nearly as bad as The Human Centipede, and that's a terrible film and all. For all the obvious reasons, but it's a terrible film. And I cannot help but feel that A Quiet Place is equal to The Human Centipede. Because it's just shite. Bear with me one moment. Sorry about that. Just doing someone a favour. They asked nicely, so. You're running away, Mr. Bobbin. some pins out. Slight deviation in them. And I've already put the middle down, so that's fine. We can pull these out. Just realised something. We were going to leave some of these in for the end. For this means that we can do easier tyings off. Now, admittedly, when we did it last time, it was considerably easier, just because we chopped the bobbins off. But this means I want to put a number of these pins back in, because it tended to pull them out of shape. That way. And that one goes in that hole. There. And I need a bin busher, because I need to be generous with my set of pins. So let's push you down. Obviously, keeping pins in is a good way to run out of pins, because, well, they're already used. Then we go back through the ground stitch that we yanked out the other day, because, well, we shouldn't have done it, because we wanted to keep them in there for a reason. It helps make us not make skanky knots and tight bits where they don't need to be. Now, somewhere around here, now, you are that pin hole. So, you are indeed there, and you should have thought of this. Because you may recall, as we turned the corners, we did a bit of this. We left pins in, and then we could pull them out. So that's why we didn't think of this. Because this row is the most important one, because it is the one that we put tension on when we're trying to do the knots at the end. Just grab a pinch of pins. slightly bigger pinch pins because that didn't go very well. It's not very easy to get a pinch of pins. It looks like it should be, but it's kind of not. There's a few, not as many as I'd like, but it's a few. Save the day. Just using the softy bit finger, which is not ideal. It's a hard and pokey inch, but it's not the sharp end. It's sharp enough. And you poke it with your finger. So you down. That's sorted. So now we can go back to pulling pins. Safe in the thought that we've kept all the pins that we actually wanted because we're not stupid. Even though we made a stupid choice, we have rectified it, and it's a good thing. Wanted pin. So let's have a look in a minute. There we go. That's sorted. It's in 3 minutes, people. That's a bit unfortunate timing, my friend, but hello. You probably can't hear me either, so I'll say hello to you again when the ads have gone by. Ah, that's fair enough. To Twitch is really weird about ads because it kind of insists that you have at least 3 minutes worth of ads every hour, but then when you set it to 3 minutes of ads, because you can't set it to say 3.5 minutes of ads to guarantee yourself 3 minutes of ads, but then it decides that you're not doing 3 minutes of ads every hour, even though it's told it can do 3 minutes of ads every hour. It's your fault that it's not doing 3 minutes of ads every hour, and you're kind of going, don't think so. My settings say you can do 3 minutes of ads every hour. If you choose not to use them, yeah, I mean, I put my little timer up because that's the amount of time that Twitch tells me ads are running for. So it still says for me, there's a minute odd of ads running. Now, I am aware that different people get different ads. Some countries get 0 ads. Some countries get ads. And it makes it really, really hit and miss. But it seems to be a better assumption to assume that for the 3 minutes that Twitch says it's doing ads, to assume it's doing ads. If it did like a minute and went, actually, I ain't got no more ads to run and came back, that would be fine. But I don't think it does that. I think it can do that if it's decided that you aren't interested in any of the other ads it was going to run. But it's too complicated. It really is far too complicated. As I say, especially when it tells me, she sits clicking around on something, hang on. I'm only averaging 2 minutes 57 seconds an hour. Well, it's not my fault. My settings are slightly better than I was yesterday. But today has been a really long day. Today is definitely one of those days where you look at the... I said it earlier in the stream, is that, you know, it's say 9 o'clock in the morning, you go, great. You sit down, you do a thing, you do another thing, and these things usually take like 20 minutes each. You do something else, you go for a pee, you get another drink, you come back, 9:02. And you're like, it's just not physically possible for it to only be 9:02. My workday started at 7 this morning, and obviously I've not been at work for the last 4 weeks, so it's a bit of a shock to the system. But more so was the fact that no one else was on. And I really was beginning to wonder by 9 o'clock if it was Saturday. Because I'm sitting there going, my phone says it's Friday. Because I need these things in my life going, today is Friday. Because otherwise I wouldn't know what day of the week it was. Today's Friday. My computer says it's Friday. But there's nobody logged into work. And I'm not the only person who logs in at 7 o'clock in the morning, because it means you can log out at 12. So, where is everybody? Where did they all go? Now, I know one guy's sick. But it just kind of frustrates me when... excuse me. It does frustrate me when you're sitting there and you do lots of things. You try really hard. And time is just not passing like it should. I mean, to be fair, I've been streaming for an hour and a half, and it feels like longer, to be honest. But not a bad longer, it just feels longer. But this morning was like 16 weeks and 3 years of hard graft. It was, I assume, because my brain is kind of overreacting to it all. But yeah, at least I got my work phone working now, so I don't have to worry so much about my laptop, because I can read all my emails. Because I've got 2 company laptops, I really don't have the setup for company laptops. When I'm working, company laptop actually lives on top of here, right? Hence I tend to push everything to the back so that the laptop can sit in the front portion. Because I just don't have space for it, really. But to have 2 laptops, yeah, that doesn't really work out. So being able to use phone instead of laptop for the one that, I won't say doesn't have any work done on it, but it's not the core working environment, because obviously we work for a client, so we have to work on their network, and that's not done with our equipment, it's done with their equipment. So as a result of that, I have 2 laptops, so the client network and the client laptop is where the predominance of work is. It makes more sense to be on that one and on the phone, as we can be on the phone, for our own company, and keeping an eye on whether something needs our attention there and firing up company laptop if you need it, rather than you know, trying to balance 2 laptops constantly, because of course, how do I say this without sounding a bit derogatory? Our new company is into being very green. I don't disagree with this, but I also work in IT for a company who make airplane parts. It's like trying to be green and do Formula 1. It's just not a thing, right? It's kind of contradictory to an extent. And so, I mean, you can be as green as you can. I don't disagree with that. And you should. You should try and be, you know, as less damaging to the environment as plausible. However, when you're trying to juggle 2 work laptops, having one that constantly goes into screen lock and power save to save the environment is really difficult when the predominance of your work is on the other one. Because, well, of course, it means that your company one, that realistically you don't actually do much on, is always in standby when you need it. And so if you're waiting on something and it's only going to appear on company laptop rather than client laptop, you have to keep poking it. And it's just... So hence the phone is a much better thing, because the phone can go ping, and I can either answer maybe whatever it is on the phone with any luck, and if I can't, I can fire up the laptop. So... Well, basically, yeah. I don't want to sound too ungreen, and I do believe that, you know, don't mass pollute the world for the sheer fun of it all. But at the same time, there has to be practicalities of it, and it's like the fact that, you know, these days you do not see people without mobile phones as a whole. You know, they in fact seem to have one implanted on their face at all times. So, don't be banging on about green when they each buy a new phone every year. Don't be banging on about green when every adult in the family's got a car. Don't be banging on about green where everything comes in 58... No, but you know what I mean. You know, 99% of the population, you know, this applies to. And it's the same with you buy something. It doesn't just come in a cardboard box or a plastic wrapper. No, it comes in a plastic wrapper in a cardboard box with plastic kind of packing, in a plastic seal, in a cardboard seal, and then inside a cardboard box, inside a cardboard box, and you're kind of going... Tad overkill here, dudes, you know. We're green, but we also live in a society where everything is almost designed to be a use once and throw it away. I mean, think about, well, even our cars. Cars today are made out of tin foil, so that should it rust, you know, cars don't get to rust anymore. Because they're not allowed around long enough to rust. The car life expectancy these days is not that big, which is part of the reason that Paxo, you know, is feeling sorry for himself. But there is the bit of you that goes, we're in a society where Your washing machine doesn't last 20, 30 years anymore. You're grateful if it lasts 3 to 5. Most of your gadgets last at most 3 to 5. Your computer, even if you're, even if you just poodle on it, after 3 to 5 years, it's feeling sorry for itself. Bits of it had died, and it's often easier just to buy a new one than it is to fix it. We live in a society where fixing things is not the thing. You think of clothes. Half the people under our age can't even sew. They can't put buttons on. They couldn't fit a zip. Now, admittedly, fitting a zip is, I would say, more complicated, but it's not really. But you do have to think about it briefly before you start. If a seam goes in your trousers, they chuck them away. They don't sew it up. I once famously went to work in a pair of stupid cheap trousers, and the stupid cheap trousers split. So I took my stapler, because that's all I had at work with me, and did a couple of layers of staples, because it was like a 5-inch split down the side, and showed me pants, so it was really, and it was a black pair of trousers, and I have prison pallor, shall we call it. So, it kind of showed. So I stapled it together. Completely forgot, because of course it held really well all day, and it wasn't scratching me, because I'd done it well. About a year or so later, I put the trousers on. Oh, that's a bit cold. Why would that feel cold? It was the staples that were still there. I completely forgot about them. They'd been washed a few times, but they were stainless steel. They were still good, and they were still holding my trousers together. It did make me laugh, because it was kind of like, oh, I remember doing that, actually. It's one of those kind of moments. But you do. You have these things, and we as society are terrible for chucking them away rather than fixing them. It was a while ago now. I think it was 2020, but around 2020, 2021, thing went up on the local Facebook group. Can anybody sew? Yeah, why? My daughter's blazer has got some seams that have failed, and I don't really want to spend 70 quid on buying a new one. Yeah, sure, bring it around. Now, admittedly, there were actually a few more than he thought, because I went over it with a tooth comb to make sure that there weren't more. And there were a few more where there were small holes forming as the seams were failing. But seams shouldn't be failing in something that costs 70 quid. If you buy a shirt down the market for £3, you're not expecting a lot. If you pay 75 quid for it though, it's a f***ing shirt. We're not marrying it. And that, by the way, that's the phrase I use for anything that's overpriced. Is I'm either eating it, using it, whatever. I'm not marrying it. And I always had the same with the sandwiches at work. I'm hungry. It's going to take me like 2 minutes to eat it. I do not need Vessel Virgin, hand wafted, expensive ingredients when I'm going to go ram chomp chomp burp, because I've probably eaten it too fast. And in 10 minutes I'll have forgotten what I ate. I am not spending £5.60 on a sandwich. I want a cheap sandwich. As long as it's filling, I want it. It's good. Preferably as long as it's not got mayo in it. Now, there are exceptions to the mayo in that the sandwiches on site, they used to do a cheese and onion. Now, cheese and onion is a glorious sandwich, frankly. These were less glorious, but they were still perfectly reasonable. They were just less glorious because basically it was grated cheese, grated onion, and mayo. Basically formed into a kind of pate and spread in your sandwich. So it was a little bit... It was not cheese with great chunks of onion, which is the gloriousness, especially if you toast them. So yeah, but it was a little bit kind of frustrating because obviously you're sitting there kind of going, I wanted a sandwich. But realistically, cheese sandwich was the de rigueur sandwich of cheapness. But even the £1.20 cheese sandwich, while they still had £5.60, bacon and, lettuce and tomato sandwich, yeah, they were a friggin' rip-off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they got up to nearly £2 something. And literally, it's 2 sheets of bread with a micro smear of margarine, it's not even butter, and, what, quarter of a pence worth of cheese in it? And you're kind of going, I don't really want to pay £2 for this. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the expensive sandwiches were really gorgeous. And I'm not denying that. But when you're just absolutely famished, you want food in your face. It's like going down the chippy. Back in the day, going down the chippy was really, really cheap. And you'd buy, you'd get like a great sack of potatoes done as chips, piece of fish, sausages, whatever took your fancy. And for a £5, you were full. Whereas at the same time, you went down McDonald's and it cost you £15. And you weren't full. And it was 6,000 more calories. Not that you overly were counting the calories, actually, but, principles. And so, yeah, I've always been a kind of... You've got to be reasonable about it. You can... if you get... It's like tonight. Tonight is takeout night. That is not a green thing, because some bugger's cooking my dinner for me. Some bugger's driving my dinner to me. This is not a green thing. But despite my company being very into being green, to the point, they like being green, they like being seen to be doing good things. And I am not against that, really not. So every quarter we're encouraged to do 1 to 3 days of community service type days that are preordained, to be okay, but basically approved of, community days, because, it makes them look good. Because it does make them look good. I'm not disagreeing with that. But at the same time, if you've got 350 people in your company, if each of them do just one mandate for each quarter of the year, you've just blown more than one man's working year of time. Now, when you're big and maybe your profits are like Elon Musk and, he could, if his stocks went down 6 billion quid, he probably wouldn't even notice. Then you've got the money and the effort to do it. If you're a smaller company and you're chucking away 1 to 3 man years a quarter, this surely eats into your profits. And the answer is clearly yes, it does. Now, it doesn't make it a wrong thing. It's just one of those, don't be surprised then when, because on top of these 1 to 3 man days a quarter, once a month we get, I can't remember what they call it, power hour or something, where you book an hour for self-improvement. So I could use this as power hour. I wouldn't. I'd probably read a book or try something new, but I could effectively do lace making as my power hour. It doesn't have to be work related. You can go for a walk. You can, go down the gym. You can, and they give you a free hour every month. But that's, again, 350 people. That's 350 man hours. That's 10 weeks of man hours lost every month by getting them to have a free hour. And it from that point of view, I don't understand it, because while I appreciate you want to be doing, you want to be seen doing the right things, and they've set our laptops to power off our, power down to save the environment and all the rest of it. But is that really kind of... Are you in a good place to be doing that? It's a bit like, I don't know, being minimum wage and promising £1,000 a month to a charity. What are you living off then, my son? It's it's not it's a bad thing to do, but can you truly afford to do this right now? Is this really the right thing here and now? And the answer, I would say, is probably not. I mean, I'm not the business, I don't have the books, but it just concerns me. That's a good word for it. It concerns me that this feels short-sighted. Because it's not like I work for a company who everybody's heard of, unlike my previous employer. So it's not like, oh, we've seen, on the news that they're doing this. It's never going to be happening, It's not going to be a thing. And to be honest, given the company name, they probably wouldn't even guess what we do. So they'd guess wrong, is all I can say to that. So yeah, I don't know. I have good I get the good intentions, and I don't disagree with it. As I say, it's an admirable thing to do, and to allow people to make to have time in work to help out, and petition your MP or whatever, and do all of these things to try and help make the world a better place. I really don't disagree with doing that. I kind of disagree with making it mandatory, which it is. Because much like religion, there is an element of, well, it's not going to matter much in my lifetime. That doesn't look right, that far. Looks better now. I've tweaked it, so that's alright. So as I say, it's not that I disagree, because I definitely don't disagree. It's just, feels a bit pie in the sky. It's an ideal, but it doesn't make it practical. But never mind. So how are you today, Nautical? Nope. Forgot to add things. Don't be a doofus. Add things. There we go. So yes, hopefully we will be able to do a fair bit of this. Before the weekend starts. Let's put you in a stick of holding. Now actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. Technically, you, dog, you do know you smell, right? You need to go in there. I'm going to stick you anyway, because, well, sticks of holding are always good. I'm going to put you back there. Bobbin's going to annoy me. Stop getting longer. It's quite funny how some of these bobbins, you know, seem quite strongly stuck where they should be, and other bobbins just kind of go whee and run away and do strange things. And get longer and longer and longer, and you're like, how are you doing this? You know, where is this happening? Like these two, one of this pair always seems to be longer than the other, and whether you shorten one or lengthen one, they still end up just out of sync. So you now need to go in here. Like that. Alright, it's not your one hole out, so we will move you up a hole. And you up a hole. There you go, that's better. See, look, this one's longer again now. I actually felt it move, because what happens is it gets a bit loose here somehow, and then as you pull it, of course, it gets longer. Because it needs the resistance for that. So my stick, have a bit of drink, because I deserve a bit of drink. You should all drink something too. And if you've got alcohol, today feels like the day to me. I'm not going to judge you if you do. I don't have any, but waste of good malt loaf. Frankly, I'd have eaten it. I like malt loaf. As you say, it is slightly annoying that they did not fall for that. So I'm not the only one then. That sounds like that's definitely a me thing to do, that is. I still haven't sawn my car, by the way. But it is. That's very much a me thing to do. Oh, I'll buy this for that. Uses eat or stroke eats it. I need another one. Buys it. Uses eats it. Whatever. Yeah. Definitely true with food. There was I was watching a stream last night as I was just before I went to bed, and there was a conversation because the guy on the stream said, and I thought these words were almost, it should be immortalised. I'm hungry and I want to eat something that will literally take years off my life. He wanted some junk food and he wanted it to be scummy. And I was kind of like, yeah, I know those days. Because, I mean, now I am not a great lover of fish, vegetables and fruit. But some vegetables, I can do vegetables. I try and eat reasonably well during the week. But Friday is takeout night. And well, that's a good start. The problem is, it is catch-22. If you put out decent enough yummies, they'll come for the yummies. Even if there's trap, they'll come for the yummies. So therefore you encourage them. I mean, I know my colleague, he put things like wire wool. He bought sheets of wire wool to put over his attic to make it hard for them. So they would shove wire wool in, you know, all the little holes and like super glue it together. Didn't stop them. He like you, he lives in a terraced house, and we don't think his problems are coming in through his house. We think they come through one of the other houses, but like it in his. And it means there's very little he can do, because obviously all of the attics are linked. As I said, the problem with chicken wire is the wrong chicken wire is too big. They can just kind of walk through it. It has to be the really fine mesh ones. The ones that are almost the mesh the size of these little squares. Because they cannot get through that. It's got to be close. But it is, you know, I mean, as I say, my mate, he's spent a fortune on it. I mean, don't get me wrong, he earns a fortune, he can afford to, but him and his wife have spent an absolute fortune trying to get rid of these little buggers, and it's almost, the more they get rid of, the more come. It's frightening amount. I mean, I know he literally, he gets to a point where it sounds and looks like he's got rid of them all, and kind of blink, and then there's a full house of the things. Fair enough. I live on Amazon, so as you might have told, I you know, my first place to look to see, you know, what's around is I look on Amazon. I may not buy it from Amazon, but I look on Amazon to see what similar options there are. Just because, well, it's one-stop shop of everything. So yeah, it's I mean, I really would have thought that, you know, poison, bear in mind, this is as far as he got. He got to poison, dusted, and filled wire wool that was then super glued into kind of a solid lump to block the end of it, so they just ate around it. And you're kind of going, but they're covered in poison, and although you and I both don't exactly view them as clean and wonderful, they do clean themselves quite a lot. So they're covered in poison and they're surviving. I mean, what are these things? Cellar-filled rats? I mean, you know, come on. And, you know, he really is. He gets at his wit's end with it. Now, because, you know, the first time you mentioned them, well, he, like you, he gets his in his kind of extension. Now, I haven't actually been in his house. I know what it looks like, but I've not actually been in his house because I have to drive an hour to go and see it. And he's got kind of an extension-y thing, and they get in the roof of his house and the extension. And the bigger problem is the roof of the extension, because it's not, you know, unlike, say, your roof where you've got a loft hatch, you can get up there and you can do things. He can't really do the same for his extension. So, you know, he kind of tries to discourage them. But as you say, if they're not in the kitchen, they're finding food somewhere. And, you know, I suppose it's no different to, you know, working the street, shall we call it, and then going home for somewhere warm to sleep. It's, you know, it becomes a real struggle because there's only so much you can really do. And like I said, he's part of a terraced house system. If you've got something similar, you could block up and put wire and filters and everything over every kind of hole, nook, cranny. You could, you know, fill it up with, you know, almost C4 for all that it mattered, right? But the truth of the matter is they're possibly not even coming through any of that. They're coming up through your neighbour. They just happen to like staying in yours. And that's when it becomes the bigger problem, because you might do everything to stop it, but because they're not in their roofs, they don't do anything to stop it in their house, but that's how they get in. They have, like, rat superhighway going on. But because they don't really hear them because, well, they come in, you know, kind of at the end of the day for a snooze, it is a very difficult thing. And I mean, having for the last 25 years, well, nearly 26 years, owned a detached house, I've not had to deal with any of that, which is frankly a glorious thing. But I know that even when my dad died, my dad lived in a semi-detached house. And I'm glad you felt you could reach out in your moment of stress, because it is important to be able to do that. And I'm very happy to be that person. I truly am, you know, even if only in terms of your minor residence, right? You know, because sometimes you need to talk to someone who understands, someone who you don't expect them to fix it for you. You just need to tell someone who knows what this means to you. And I do know what this means to you, because I remember when you said you first heard them in you know, above your toilet. And I instantly thought of my co-worker and all the struggles he's had. Well, given half of his family's in there and they hate him, but yeah, it might counterbalance some of that. I will do. But you know, maybe you need to trade notes on things you've tried. But it is, you know, he hasn't moaned about them for a while, which is a good thing. But he spent hours, months, doing things, trying things, filling up the tiniest of holes, blocking it with this, filling it with that, buying some of this. He spent a fortune, he did a lot, and it was a lot of effort, and his problems were coming through his neighbours. And of course he lives next door to a hideous woman of you know, frankly, Karenitis, and she's the kind of person who chucks her rubbish over into his garden and then moans that his garden's untidy. That kind of person, you know, the real class people in life. Anyway, she, you know, she gets them coming into her house, and he can't do squat because, of course, well, it doesn't bother her. It is well, it's not in my backyard. Well, it is in your backyard. You're just, you know, but it's like my ex-husband, before he moved in with me, he lived in a house in Watford. And while it was before I knew him, the story goes, one day he kind of woke up and his garden was cesspit swamp. And the sewers had burst and it was all over his garden. So he called someone out and it was full of nappies. Now, my ex-husband's never had children, nor has the woman who was sharing his house. So it wasn't them. What it was people further up the hill were putting nappies down the toilet, and it was making it part way down the sewers and then blocking the sewers at the bottom of the hill where his house was. So his house had all the cost of sorting it out, and all the people who were doing it, well, it didn't happen. Oh, it's not blocked here, it's fine. Must be a you problem. And I feel that furry residents kind of fall into those kind of categories too, in the sense of just because they're getting in through someone's house, unless it causes them physical problems, most of the time they don't care. They will just kind of go, oh, that's a you problem. Yeah, but they're your problem, and kind of downhill or warmer house or, you know, nicer living conditions, whatever it is that draws them to your property or draws the problem down, such as gravity or whatever, means I'm suffering from your carelessness. I care, you know. It's, you know, can we not make a concerted effort to do something about this? And yet they're usually the kind of people who don't want to know, because it's not my problem, I'm not suffering. And it's a bit like often in business. Sometimes in business, you know, change only happens when there's pain felt. It can be stupid for years, but because they get away with it, they don't care because it's not a problem today. When it becomes a problem, then we'll deal with it. And too many people, you know, we all do a bit of that. You know, I don't go up there checking every roof tile every 6 months to see if any of them need replacing. You know, kind of one of them's got to fall to the ground and then go, shit, and get the roofer out, right? There are lots of things in life that we don't necessarily do as well as we should. But it is too easy for us all to sit there and go, well, if I'm not suffering, it's not my problem. And we shouldn't be like that, because a bit like the green thing, we should try. There should be an element of try. Now, you know, when you live in, you know, the far reaches of Scotland where the nearest shop's 30 miles away, you are not going to go and do your weekly shop on a fucking push bike. You are not going to walk it over hill and dale. You need a car. It's kind of a need, right? It's not it would be nice. You need a car. You're certainly not going to taxi the bugger. So you haven't got a choice. You need. Therefore, you need fuel. Therefore, you need to keep it on the road. It's not a luxury item for people like that. For people like me, a car is a much more luxury item. I can arguably live without a car. Well, for the last 6 months I have, because it doesn't work. But there are times when people do not take responsibility for something that they are very much part of the cause. And when it comes to things like furry residents, neighbours do need to investigate that they are not making that problem worse. Because, I know that, for example, like I think I said to you before, I kind of guessed, but I joked with my dad because he kept hearing things in the garden and couldn't find them. And I said, well, it's rats. And he was like, nah. Yeah, it was. Absolutely was. I was standing in the garden, I heard something in the bushes. Yeah. And there's places like that. And, if we think of some of our American friends, there can be roads where, there's like one gas station and two houses almost, and then you won't see anything for another 100 miles. If you don't think about it, it's going to be a problem. And you can't... So there are times where, if you're living in central London, you don't need a car. You really don't. Everything is round the corner, on the tube, on a bus, 3 yards down the road. You're never far from anything in London, right? The further you get out and the more countrified it gets, well, it kind of is. Now, I live in a village. It's quite a reasonable sized village. It's only a little village, but, there's a fair few houses here. The next village over where I used to live is one of the largest villages in the UK. Well, they claim to be the largest, but it's nowhere near the largest. But it is one of the largest villages in the UK. But realistically, their high street doesn't have a bank on it. It's got a pitiful post office the size of a postage stamp in the corner of a newsagent's, and they are the most grumpy people in there you've ever met. It's got a Sainsbury's and a Lidl. Sorry, it's got a Tesco's and a Lidl's, but the Lidl's is... No, I don't know quite how they've ever kept in business. It's got a Chippy and a Chinese. Used to have a hairdresser, so I'm not even sure it's still got the hairdressers. It's not got a bookshop. It's not got a stationery shop. It's not got kind of like, the stuff you used to find in Woolworths. You couldn't go and do your Christmas shopping in it. Hell, you can barely do your weekly shopping in it. There's nowhere to park. There's the Tesco's and Lidl's car park. That's it. And here, this village, we have a shop. It's open like 3 hours a day, staffed by volunteers kind of thing. And they hold like one packet of sausages and a packet of cornflakes and a pint of milk. And then when someone comes in and buys it, the shop shuts. It's not quite that bad, but it's close. It really is. I've seen a picture of it. It's like 2 small racks. I'm talking, racks, not much wider than this cushion, of food. That's it. That's the entire shop. That's it. And there's got to be a couple of thousand people. But that's it. That's how it's... So if I need to go shopping, I need a car. Because there's nowhere within walking distance. The nearest walking distance is either the old village that I lived at, which is probably a couple of miles, or the centre of town, which is 2.5, 3 miles. I ain't carrying my weekly shop that far by choice. On a summer's day, you can go out for a stroll and come back with maybe something for lunch, but you wouldn't go and do your weekly shop with it when you're carrying half your body weight in food, especially if you need a 15 kilo of dog food or something. You're not carrying, 2 of those and then half your own body weight for you. You're not going to walk that on a happy day. Even on a happy day, that's going to be a struggle. And so there are definitely places and times where, things are not optional. And as I say, I feel that your neighbours probably need to look into whether they're contributing to your issue to be sure that they are not encouraging the animals. Now, for example, foxes are considered pests. I like foxes, they're glorious, they look beautiful. But if you do get one in your garden, it can be a pest, and I'm not going to disargue that. Mr. Fox ate one of my ducky friends. So, you know, Mr. Fox has lost a bit of shine in the personality department over the last few years. Because in 2020, I befriended 2 little wild ducks who used to walk to come and see me. Yeah, Mr. Fox ate one. And I was devastated. Because these 2 little ducks used to come anything from 2 to 5 times a day to come and see me. And they walked on their tiny little ducky legs. In the heat, so I used to make sure there was a bit of shade, some water in the cool bit, and they would come along and I'd give them a little bit of food. So of course they kept coming back. But, you know, if I talked to them, they would rush to my voice. Because I remember one time I saw on duck cam, because I had a camera put out so I could see if they were there. Because I could, well, as long as I was physically in the room, I could hear if they were there. But I had duck cam, and my duck cam said, you know, alert, movement, and look, there were a pair of ducks. And I happened to be coming back from the vets with the dog. Well, ducks and dog, not necessarily a good plan. And I was really worried, because when I got home, I needed to go towards the front door to put the dog in the house. But the ducks were rushing to me. I had to put fortunately, I'd accidentally left the back gate open and not locked it. So I put her in the garden while I kind of ushered the ducks back up the far end of the garden so I could go in the front door and get them a bit of food and let the dog in. Because I didn't want the dog eating the ducks. Because he would have done. And, you know, but it was really sad when Mr. Fox ate the ducks. But my dad, bless his stupid heart, because foxes can carry fleas and things, because of course they're wild animals, my dad used to get stuff from the vet to treat the foxes. So every day, my dad put out sausages for the foxes. As you say, they may not be directly, deliberately contributing, but if they've got, as you know, it doesn't take a big hole for these annoying buggers to get through. So all it takes is one small hole. And they could be getting into your cavity because, well, it's warmer, it's drier, it's safer, and well, you know, it's almost rat 5-star hotel. And it's not necessarily, I mean, part where I was going with my dad's foxes is that he then had families, plural, of foxes that the man was cooking like, you know, half a dozen sausages a day to put out for and chopping them up into chunks so that the foxes each got a bit to keep them all healthy. But of course that meant they kept coming back. But it also meant they kept coming back into the area, and should my dad say have forgotten, they then kind of were looking around, well, what else can we eat? So they raided the bins, and it is very easy for, if you leave bin bags out, if any of them are like my old neighbours, because thankfully my old neighbours moved out, but my old neighbours, when they had a baby, used to kind of tie the nappy up into a bundle and literally just chuck it out, put it on the front doorstep. So you're putting out skank and leaving it out the front. And some days I'd come home from work and there'd be like 5 or 6 of them all on the doorstep. Their bin was literally 2 feet away, but they weren't putting them in the bin. They were leaving them to cook in the summer sun. It stank, right? And I did complain to the owner of the house because they were renters. And she'd, well, we all do that. And I'm like, well, not where I come from, they don't. And because at the time they were through an estate agent, I had words. A friend of mine was thinking of selling a home, and I kind of went, do you deal with this house? And they went, actually, yes, we do. And I went, let me show you some pictures. And I said, I'm officially complaining, but if you'd care to, like, you know, mooch round a couple of times, you know, on the off chance, feel free, you know, heads up. And they did, and they got told off for it. Because, you know, they dropped round, and lo and behold, there were like 6 nappies on the doorstep, and it's like, dude, that's gross. Because I'd said something, nothing happened. I'd said something to the owner, nothing happened. So I complained to the company that is legally responsible for it. Yeah. Well, this is exactly what my dad did. And they were glorious. Don't get me wrong, I really do like a glorious fox. I remember one really sad day. Trevor and I had gone for lunch while we were at work, because we worked together. And we'd gone to lunch, and we parked the car as usual, and garden of the house next to where we parked was a raised front garden, so it wasn't just a raised flower bed, there was raised, you know, grass, and you had to go up steps and everything. But lying in the grass, looking asleep, but not, was possibly the most glorious fox you have ever seen in your life. He was shiny, brilliant, you know, that coppery, fiery red. He was so glorious. I don't know what he died of, because he looked too healthy to have naturally demised. Because he wasn't skinny, he wasn't fat, but he wasn't skinny. And as I say, he was in the most glorious to look at. He really looked asleep. And what really upset me was the following day, we assumed the house owner would have reported it to the council to come and get him. They didn't. So I did. Because he did not deserve to be left there. He did not deserve that. He deserved some dignity, frankly. But, you know, don't get me wrong. I don't dislike Mr. Fox. I really don't. I'm just a bit sore that he ate Bert and Gracie were the 2 ducks. I was a bit, you know, I'm a bit raw that he ate Bert. Because, you know, I could have put food down for you. You didn't have to eat the duck. Or any of the rabbits. Because by the time when this happened, my garden was like frigging Dr. Dolittle. I had the ducks, I had hedgehogs, I had rabbits, I had, you know, foxes. I had the whole shebang out in my garden at various points. And it was glorious. I loved to see it. Ads. You're being annoying, Bobbins. Annoying. Right. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you are full of Bobbins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fair enough. It still tells me I've got, you know, 2 minutes of ads to go, but yeah, you know, so most animals I don't begrudge trying to live. I really don't, except rats. And snakes, but that's a whole new story. You know, there are animals I don't really want to share the house with. Big spiders. But at the same time, I'm not going to freak out and cry because there's one in the house. I'd just rather it wasn't. But, yeah, little fairy buggers? No. Mice? Yeah, whatever. Pretty much. Don't really care if you know, if I found out I had some mice, I probably wouldn't care. I'd probably feed them. But, because I'm really not that problem, I'd make sure they couldn't get into my food and then I'd feed them. Because, well, I quite like mice. I can't do rats. But as you say, the biggest problem is when you've got them and you don't want them, it is not an easy thing to... You can't just kind of say, be gone, and they all disappear, you know, much as that would be nice. So, I don't know what to suggest, but I can ask my mate, actually let me text him and ask him how his little furry problems are doing, because he hasn't mentioned it for ages. Because funny, I remember saying to you, the day you found you had yours, he'd mumbled about hearing some in his. Let's see how he's doing with his. Tis one of my favourite lines from Demolition Man, though. What burger's this? El Rata! Apparently all his are dead, is the short answer. And they are quite vicious because, not wishing to be too alarmist, but you can lose a knuckle, a finger knuckle, to a rat. They can take a finger off at the knuckle, given a really good chance. Yeah, there's no good thing you can say about them, really. You know, they're not cute. They're not. There's just not. And they can be quite big. They can be very big little buggers, and that really doesn't help either. I mean, lots of things can make you jump, but something the size of a small cat is you know, distinctly unpleasant. Some of them aren't even that much smaller than bigger cats, but, you know. Yeah, last thing you need is them pouncing at you. It's like I said though about spiders. I don't care if there's a thing the size of you know, a 14-inch pizza spider the size of a 14-inch pizza sitting in the corner of my room. Although, frankly, I probably would be slightly creeped out by that. But as long as it stays in that direction or gets further away. It's the getting closer section that does me. You know, if you're running away, great. You can run away all you like. Bye-bye, have fun. If you run at me, well, that's fighting talk. And, yeah. Aww. Says a lot, really, doesn't it? Because seals are, while they're quite a lot of blubber, there's quite a lot of muscle in a seal. It's, you know, they're not weak and fragile things here, you know. Yeah. I know what you mean. It's almost the I'd rather jump in the velociraptor pit waving stakes around. You know, it's kind of, yeah, no, I don't really want to play with rats. I did wonder about things like, you know, finding holes and pouring in UV resin and, you know, then, of course, waving UV lights around to harden it so that it's kind of filled in the gaps with solidness of, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, that's not cheap either, you know. But as you say, the thing is, you really have to truly is identifies how they're getting in. Thank you for the follow, Added Dragon. I appreciate that. I like followers. Means you're hoping to come back. That's always a good thing. Hope you're enjoying the stream. Everyone's free to ask questions. Doesn't have to be just Nautica and me talking about his little rat problem. So. Yes, Tenchi! Hiya, Tenchi! How you doing? It's Friday, Tenchi. That's a good thing. Glad you got that sorted. That's a good thing. Yes, I heard that, and I heard the first two that you two didn't. That you slept through. And I was just trying to work out what it is, but now I can't hear it because of you. Amy, shush. Shut up! What part of shut up is hard to understand? I said shut up. Because every time you make a noise, I think I've heard something out. I'm hearing something outside. And I'm trying to listen for it. There are some birds who make some funny noises around here. And it's sometimes hard to work out what's going on because, well, next door there are some geese. So that's fine, they honk, right? And there's a crane. Don't ask, it's a stork or a crane, I have no idea. One or the other lives next door. Most of the time, I don't think he leaves, so he's about there. There are deer out there. There are foxes. There are badgers. Haven't seen the badgers, but I've been told reliably by the owner of the land that they're badgers. But there are birds, and I know it's a bird because it comes from up in the trees. And it kind of goes, wah! And I have no idea what that is. But you can hear, it usually happens because it's Dunk's badger's butt here. It's only 4:45, but it's dark as hell. But it happens in the dark. And you kind of get, it's almost like a baby, but not quite. And you get, it's like, wah! Wah! And it's like, what is that? Now, the noise I just heard sounded more like a cat. But at the same time, could have been a bird. Could have been a squirrel for all I friggin' know. I've never really heard squirrels that I'm aware of. I'm surprised because we've got quite a few of them. Now, we get lots of woodpeckers. So you hear the rapping of the woodpecker and the laughing of the green one. Because the green one sounds like a laugh. I know that. But I don't know what that was. It sounded... No, the dog's barking. Now, one time... And, of course, then there's Bailey, who lives out the back, right? And, of course, that's just the annoying woman and her dog. But there have been a couple of times where next door's cat's been picked on by one of the other bigger bully cats that lives around here. And she's gone out because it was attacking it. And I was about to go out and save it. And, you know, because I know it's the neighbour's cat. So, you know, I know she'd be devastated if anything happened to it. So... You know, I was all out for going and picking up. But I also know that the stupid cat has wandered through my garden when the dogs have free rein out of the garden. And the dogs has gone out and then you've heard whumph as the cat ploughs into the fence because it's, you know, getting away from the dog. So, you know, it's not the brightest cat. Because, you know, you just wandered into the garden that you know is occupied by 2 dogs. And you took your chances, really? I know you live with a dog, but it's a tiny little French bulldog. These things are huge in comparison to it. No! Because apparently the dog next door does bully the cat a bit. Whereas these two would just eat it. Because they've not really had the opportunity to meet cat and learn that cat is allowed. I mean, you know, I tell them, but of course that doesn't mean anything, so... I do fear that one day the cat will wander into the garden and, not get away from the dog. That would be an embarrassing conversation to have with a neighbour. Hi, I think this is a bit of your cat. Yeah, that's really not the conversation you want to be having, is it? I know that my parents had to do a bit of that. We had a dog called Sandy, and Sandy was a bit of everything. And... Sandy didn't like technically 3 things. Cats, dogs, and people with their hands in the air. All of them were fair game to be eaten. And I have never forgotten the day. I must have been towards the end of Sandy's time. He'd lost his eyesight, but he was still very much with it. I'm sitting in my dad's chair for some reason, which was very unusual. And I looked to my right, because you know how like occasionally you see things out the corner of your eye. I looked to my right because something moved in the corner of my eye because the dog's in front of me. And there is a cat, bold as brass, walking down our hallway. Now, it's not a particularly long hallway, and it was walking out, so I don't know when it came in. But this cat is strutting around like it owns the place. And I'm looking at this cat, and the dog has obviously picked up on the fact that there is something to be looking at, because obviously it's hard not to look at this cat going, you got a death wish or something, right? And the dog decides, we can sort some of that. I'm not sure, but I've got a feeling that cat did not make it to the bottom of the garden. Now, to be fair, my dad's garden was a good 100 feet. So, you know, there was room for the dog, and he was part whippet, by the way, to make speed after said furry object. And I seem to recall my parents had on a few occasions to return collars to distressed owners, and with the sorry. But I was not privy to that. I never actually saw any of it myself. But I do know that, a bit like my two, there would be occasions, although most of my dad's garden was fenced with kind of wire mesh fence, the bottom of the garden had 6-foot wooden panels. And the number of the time you would hear and whoomph as the whack as the cat hit the fence. And it's kind of like, you really need to learn to clear that, because you know, if you hit that and fall back, the dog's going to eat you one day. And as I understand it, I think it did on a couple of times. So yeah, oops. But yeah, I don't want to be that person, but the noise I heard, I couldn't tell if it was a cat or a bird, because there are a couple of cats around here. As I say, there are many multitude of wildlife things, and I'm quite happy for the wildlife things. In fact, that was the best part of 2020, because I was surrounded by wildlife to watch. It was better than watching snow. You know how, like, in period dramas, you know, the woman, you know, the man would say, "Damn it, woman," and the woman would kind of go, "Oh, I feel faint," because she'd said "damn it" or whatever, right? And you know, you're kind of going, "Go with yourself." I've never been one of those kinds of gasp, swoon kind of girls, right? I was out in my garden once, and I was just mooching, looking out the bottom of my garden, because, you know, there's a field behind me. And technically half of next door's garden, because her garden doesn't end, it just kind of turns into this field. Anyway, we were standing there, and suddenly, I don't know where they'd been, because I'm usually quite observant, there must have been like 20 deer pounding right behind my back fence. Bear in mind, my back fence is kind of a low fence with kind of a topper of crisscross so you can see through it. So I could see them. So there were like 20 deer tearing across the bottom of my garden. And I remember going, "Oh." I was like, where did that come from? That's not a me thing. Where did that come from? It was a bit like the time I walked up behind one of the butchest guys in our office. And I put my hand on his shoulder to ask him a question. And he went, "Ah!" And he was like, And he went, "Me gruff." Because he sounded like a small little girl. It was, yeah, he'll never live that one down. But, yeah, I did the gasp. I was like, where did that come from? Yeah. Normally it would have been, fuck, or such, not, it was just kind of like, get me my lace hanky and my, and a fan, because I clearly need it. You know, hey, Mr. Darcy. It really was kind of, you know, I should go and do some embroidery. I feel so woozy. I will go. Oh, I've had such a strenuous day sitting and reading my book. It was. I've never felt more feeble in my life. Because I'm not a delicate girl. I'm really not. The only reason I don't do things like climb up on my roof and clear out the gutters is because I'm fat and I fear I'll fall through it. Otherwise, whatever. I'll climb up a ladder. I'll swing from a tree. I'll get under a car. I've no shame, you know. But on that occasion, I really was the whimsiest of people. I'm so glad that didn't get caught on camera. I'd never live that one. Because of course I can tell you, but you've got no proof that was true. Now I'm going to assure you it was, but you've got no proof. So I'm glad that there is no proof, because dear Lord, that was embarrassing. I haven't seen the deer for a few months, actually. I mean, because you've got to catch them, because obviously you don't generally see them in the open field so much. You have to see them kind of transversing the field from one hidey hole to another hidey hole. But I haven't seen them for a while. But then I've clearly been looking out at the wrong time of day, because I don't sit there watching for them. But some weeks, I've kind of like, every time I've looked out, there's been one out in the field. And I'm not necessarily just standing there like a plank, but, you know, on one occasion, I think there were 4 or 5 of them. Kind of, I won't say standing in the field mooching, but, you know, getting close. There's definitely a couple of families out there. And they do ratting, and, you know, because I can hear it. And they, I don't know quite where they hide, but they come in because obviously next door that way, she's got this lake pond thing, so they come to drink, especially in the hot weather. So during the summer days, they definitely come along because it's the local source of water sort of thing. Although I believe there is actually another pond, but I've got a feeling that because that's frequented by everybody's pets, they would obviously prefer hers because it won't smell of dogs and predators and things quite so much. But yeah, you know, I like seeing them around. That's what I came back to the country for. I didn't come to live in the country to see even less wildlife than I did when I lived in the, you know, on the edge of the city. It's, you know, it was. Well, I don't live right in the middle of the country. I live kind of towards the country. I live in a reasonably built up area, but not, you know, not, well, as I say, there's a field behind me, so it's not, you know, far. And I'm sure they're building it at some point and wreck it, but probably when she dies, to be honest. The lady who owns it is like 906 years old, and I'll imagine that when she goes, her son will flog the land and people will build houses on it, which would be really sad because I really like my view of the little field and all the animals. And the last thing I really want is, you know, screaming children and barking dogs and all the joys that goes in living up a built up area. Bad enough that they are building, not off our road obviously, because there isn't anywhere to build off our road, but the road that we're off, if if you came out of our road and turned left, it went to a kind of dead end in a field with a half destroyed, probably once was expensive house that's now been renovated up a bit. But it seems that they're building a housing estate there, which is slightly infuriating, because the road that we live off is really not designed for high traffic. It's a bit of a dog crap road, to be honest. It's more like driving up someone's driveway, because of course it was. Funnily enough. So naughty cow, my friend says, needs to attack them two ways. Work out where they're getting in and block it up, and then bait it. You see, that's kind of, I mean, we're not quite as good here because obviously I'm not coastal, but you know, as I say, I've got fields behind me. There are houses, you know, so if I desperately, you know, if I ran out into the street screaming, I know people would hear me and people would come. So it's not that, you know, should there be an emergency, you know, there's no one around to help, right? I mean, they might not be in, but, you know, there are houses, well, obviously I've got two neighbours in the road, and if I stand roughly where my car is, even a limp-wristed child could throw a ball and hit each three of the three houses. So it is, you know, it is reasonably close. There's also the big house for the farm that's, well, the one over there. Then, of course, there's a road full of people who've got posh houses. Then, you know, they're not exactly going to be scabbing your stuff. So, but interestingly enough, if you turn left at the road, you kind of turn into dead end city, and all the houses to the right of our road are beautiful. They're expensive looking. Turn left and it looks like you fell into some cheap rundown, you know, hole of a place, because half of them have got broken windows, boarded windows, overgrown gardens, and that's the ones being lived in. And it really is like night and day. And at the end of that, there is this field with this kind of rundown house, which I understand is, I know it sounds really bad, but I haven't actually gone to check, but it's been renovated and someone apparently now lives in it. Which I find surprising, because it had clearly been run down for a long time. And it's a bit like there's a house stroke building stroke something. If you drive down the A40, this side of Oxford, so kind of, you know, west side of Oxford, there is this huge house that has had signposts of like opening next year for years. I mean, like 20-something years. And it's run down. Half of it's fallen down. It's not got, it never had any windows in it. Half the brickwork's fallen down. And someone else will buy it. They'll move, clear it out a little bit, do a little bit of work, run out of money, rinse and repeat. And this house at the end of here, the kind of similar style, in that it obviously never had windows in it. It was just the brickwork, and someone gave up. And apparently someone's now bought it, fixed the side of the house that had fallen down, done all of that. But they're now talking about building 100 houses kind of in the field where that, you know, and maybe the connecting field. So, and they're talking about making another spur onto the main road, which would be good. But, yeah, really don't need more houses. We really don't, because there are lots of houses for sale. The problem is like everything, is that the people who want to buy a house are the people who can't afford to buy a house because all the houses are too expensive. So it's not that we need more houses. I mean, I know that there is a considerable homeless issue in the UK, but this is going to sound bad, but many of them are homeless through choice. Now, not choice, they have chosen it over a worse scenario. but they originally had a house, they now don't have a house. And then once you don't have a house and you can't keep a job down because you look like death or you smell bad or whatever, then you lose the job. Now you can't afford to live anywhere or eat anything, and it just snowballs. And I do have a lot of sympathy for them. But we have a lot of houses for sale in the UK constantly. It's just that no one can afford them. All the people who need to buy houses can't afford them. And people who can afford to buy them and put them up as rent charge more than it costs to buy it, you know, in terms of a mortgage, to rent it. So again, if you couldn't afford to buy it, you're hardly going to be able to afford £2,000-3,000 a month to rent it. So catch-22. It's you know, so a lot of houses are for sale, but they're just too expensive. And so all that really happens is people bounce from, you know, house to house. But the same amount... Well, it is, and I don't disagree with that. I really, really don't. Thank you for farting, Doug. But at the same time, some of the, you know, when you look at what some of them are for the money, right? It is quite shocking. I remember my old house in London. So, for picture, my old house in London cost me £72,000. For which we put down a reasonable deposit, so the mortgage was not for that amount. My mortgage was £400 and something a month. If I'd wanted to rent it to people, it was minimum £1,500. Now, there's mortgage taxes and stuff, but that doesn't triple it. And that was 20-something years ago. And it's still as bad today, which of course is why people who can afford to buy spare houses do and rent them, because, well, you can make quite a mint on it. Usually to the point that if you've got a house with a mortgage yourself, you can then buy and mortgage another house, and the rent on house number 2 pays for mortgage on both house 1 and 2, so you effectively live in your house rent free. But it is your house, and it will be being paid off by the poor schmo who couldn't get a mortgage for some reason, so he's renting, or didn't need to get a mortgage because they won't be there long enough. But they're living there, paying your mortgage and the mortgage for the house that they're living in, and you know, and some spare. But they couldn't afford to buy the house in the first place. For which my ex-husband falls into that category. He rents. His rent is not ridiculous, to be fair. So, you know, from that point of view. But, you know, when he lived in a 1-bedroom flat and his rent was £600 odd a month, and it literally was an absolute shithole. I mean, you know, one of the residents was known as Mattress Back, all right? It was not a pleasant area to be living in. And so, you know, it was still quite expensive. And the house that went up for sale kind of right opposite him was dirt cheap. So it's not that, you know. A lot of it is greed because, of course, if you can charge it and they will pay, well, why not, right? As we all know, for many products, you know, this piece of wood did not cost, you know, £4.95. Yes, the engraver cutter thing, you know, distributed over a number of them, you know, obviously the more you make, you know, the less it costs. But for the first one, you could argue it cost, you know, a couple of grand, because that's maybe how much the machine cost. Well, funny you should say that. When I bought my first house, we were looking to rent. And boyfriend at the moment wanted to live on the outskirts of London, but not too far out so that it didn't take too long for him to get to work in the East End of London. But at the same time, didn't want to move to the East End of London, or the east side of London even. He wanted to stay on the west side of London. But he had to be kind of like within an hour's journey from work, which kind of limited it a lot. And we were looking at places like Richmond. And fuck me, it is expensive in Richmond. So we were looking, and the rent for it was astronomical. It was, even back then, for two of us in like a one-bedroom flat, was best part £2,000 a month. And then you had the land fees, so I can't remember what they call them, but basically the maintenance of the building and land costs that are on top of your rent. And you're kind of like, well, surely it should just be built in the rent. And the one that we looked at, the one that was, the most appropriate for... Why have I got a spare pair of bobbins? How does that work? Just got to screw it up somewhere. But now the flat that we looked at, literally its bathroom was the size of a toilet. It pretty much, the shower was over the toilet, and you had to sit on the toilet to take a shower. It really was no more room than that. It was proper standing room only, right? That's better. Anyway, and it was at the top of a real bendy flight of stairs, so you couldn't have got any furniture up there. And they wanted, I think it was $3,000 a year for the land maintenance, and I think, as I say, it was a couple of grand a month for the rent. And I earn 11 grand a year. And I said to her, can I ask you a really personal question? She said, well, it depends what it is. And I said, do you rent or mortgage? And she said, I mortgage. And I said, would you share how much your mortgage is? And she went, yeah, I have this amount of mortgage and it costs me this much a month. And I said, so you're telling me that you bought a house, you have like an 80 grand mortgage, and your mortgage payment is, say, 550 quid. Yes. And this one bedroom flat in Richmond, is being rented for 5-6 times that. Yeah. Anyway, we were driving back home and we passed on our way a set of new builds. And on the front it will say, 2-3 bedroom houses and flats. Starts at, and I think it was 60 grand. So we called in. I insisted on the grounds that, well, we've just found out that, someone's mortgage is considerably cheaper. This is literally 5 minutes from where we were looking. Let's have a look. And we walked in, and as it turned out, as I say, 3-bedroom house, end of terrace, was £72,000. The mortgage for that was £400 and something a month. I think initially when we took it out, it was £300 and something a month. And so we bought it because it was far more economically viable to buy the house. But you have to be in a position where you can get a mortgage. And being 20, of course you can, pretty much. As long as you've got a job and you're 20, pretty much you can get a mortgage. When you're 50-something, nearly 60-something, as his lordship is, well, it's harder to get a mortgage at that age because they don't believe you're going to be around long enough to pay it. Now, of course, it also means that he's been around a long time, and you would have thought he would have built up something by now. No. In part because he's rented a lot. When I first booted him out, he and after his parents died, he had plenty of money at the time, if in the right circumstances, to have bought a house, almost outright. I mean, it might not have been a great house, but he could have got a small mortgage because he would have been paying, he would have, you know, the down payment was 99% of it. He was just paying kind of like the difference with a mortgage. But because he was so bad with money, he had huge debts. So had to pay the debts off with the money from his parents. As a result, couldn't get a mortgage because, well, the mortgage money was now eaten up having paid for the debts. So the house then, he would have needed a much bigger mortgage and he couldn't have got that. Which, you know, it's kind of sad. But it means that he has had to rent because he really didn't have a lot of choice. I mean, if he'd gone to an absolute scummy area, I mean, the area he was in was scummy enough. But if he had gone to an even scummier area, and I don't think there were too many of those around here, but, you know, there are a couple I can think of that, yeah, he could have bought a house there, even with what he had left. Probably been shot by now, but he would... Because the area I'm thinking of, apparently shootings are almost daily. So, it doesn't make the papers, interestingly enough, but there are shootings almost daily. So, because it's just that rough an area, it's just deemed normal for them. You know, it's part of their daily life. You know, you don't go out at night, you don't do this, and you don't speak to anyone because otherwise they might shoot you. You know, it's one of those things. So he could have gone and lived there, but he didn't. He rents, and I don't disagree with that. It's his life; he's allowed to. But it does mean that, you know, he's got nothing for it after all this time. Bit of a shame, really. But his opportunity where he could have bought something with his house, you know, to have bought a house and been in a position where, you know, he could have stayed somewhere and had a dog and all the things that would have cheered him up. He had to pay his debts off with it, which is, as I say, big shame. Shame how it all worked out and all that, but never mind. Never mind. I think that's one of the strangest things that, as a Brit watching American stuff on TV, is that it does seem that you know, you get the impression, I'm sure it's not entirely true, but you get the impression that in America, considerably large houses are quite cheap. There may not be great palaces here, but we are talking, you know, compared to the average British house. You know, considerably large houses, you know, 6 bedrooms, and when I say bedrooms, they're, you know, they're not, you can fit a single bed in it and maybe shuffle round the edge, which is kind of half the bedrooms in the UK. We are talking, you can put a king-size bed in it and, you know, have a picnic on the floor or around it, you know, and have a bit of a party. And yeah, you get the impression that houses are really substantially cheaper over there, and that even people who have zero income and, you know, live off the dole or whatever, you know, whatever you call it, benefits of some variety, can afford to live in houses that even people with decent salaries can't afford here. And of course they inevitably have bigger yards because you're not short space. I mean, you're short space in certain places, but you know what I mean, in the sense of, you know, it's rare these days that any modern build house here has got a garden really worth speaking of. I mean, it's got a garden usually, but sometimes it's barely the size of a place to park your car. I know when we came up looking for houses when we moved up here. One of the houses we saw, we quite liked the house. It was all right. You know, it was on the it could be okay list. It had a walk-in fireplace kind of thing that was really cool, and we were quite up for that. We knew that we were potentially going to have a dog at some point, and we took one look at the garden, and basically I all could have laid in the ground and starfished and touched each corner. And it's like, it's not a garden. Oh, well, they built a garage in the garden. Oh, I heard that too. But it meant that there literally was nowhere. You know, you almost couldn't put a chair out in the garden. Amy! It's all right, little one. Oh, dear God, just shut up. You know, there literally wasn't... You could not have put a chair and sat out in the sun in that garden and put your feet up. There just wasn't room for it. Let alone two of you. Why are the fireworks? Seriously, people. Why are the fireworks? I know, little one. Yeah, I know. You tell them. Yeah, Rory, you tell them too. Roo! Yeah, roo, roo, roo! Roo, roo! Roo! They're rude. Yeah, I know. There are a lot of really good reasons as to why private fireworks should not be allowed. Mainly because they're dangerous and people are idiots. But, yeah. We do not need fireworks on a Friday night. Thanks. Did I forget something from my Tesco order? No! I did not forget something from my Tesco order. Shut up, dog. 1, 2, 3, 5. And even if I had, as I only booked it today, chances are I will, if I'd remembered it by now, I'd have added it. So let's not pretend here that I have, you know, I'm going to remember something to add to it today. I can still hear them too. Amy, I know. I know. It's rude of them. I know it is. Yes, Rory. I realise that it is upsetting and yes, I do understand these things. I know you don't like them and that you think it's rude. I do. And I'm agreeing with you. I truly am. Because for all the little animals who have no idea what that shit's about and who are scared by it, for all the people who suffer from trauma who are scared by it, there's just no need for any of it. And, you know, it's just an unnecessary thing. So I totally agree with you, dog. Yes, I do. I do. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. Have you told them that? Have you? Have you told them that? Yes, you. Have you told them what you think? Have you? Have you? Someone will post on Facebook later, what were all the fireworks for? We didn't need that. My dog's hiding under the couch. Because no, we didn't need it, but someone obviously felt that their day would be better with. And they were wrong. But, you know. Stop licking things. Especially my work laptop. Can you not lean on me, Rory, please? Get enough backache doing this without fighting with the dog. So, I think, having got to the bottom of here, we shall pull some pins out and then call it a day so that I can get me some food because, well, frankly, that's a thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get me some food and shout at the fireworks or something. Actually, I don't generally do that. I did go and shout at them, Bailey, Bailey, lady, because funny enough, she hasn't really done it since then. What a shame. So it worked, clearly. Well, as you well know, I salute you, sir, and wish you best endeavours on your mission. May the better man win and all that. If you want me to get some advice on things for your problem from my co-worker, who obviously fairly successfully has demised his problem, I am more than happy to ask. You know, because he might have some recommendations of specific materials to block things with. I understand those problems, which reminds me I really must do my bins tonight. Go and bark it outside. Yeah, I know what that's like. The problem is around Christmas they really need to allow more bags, because you know, even if you're an antisocial fart like me, you still generate more shit around Christmas, because you order a few things, people send you stuff, it comes in 58 layers of packaging, you bought this, you know, even just the output of your Christmas dinner, you know, if you bought this, you bought that, you bought some of those, you had a packet of this, you've suddenly got 3 tons more of shit to put out, and they just don't seem to kind of think about it. And one of the problems we have here, nice, that's always useful. My neighbours have occasionally asked if I've got any room in my bin, and if I have, they're more than welcome to use it, because, you know, fair enough. But it, you know, I just feel that an awful lot of the councils don't put a lot of thought into it, because our lot, we have green bin week and blue bin week. Green bin is general refuge, blue is recyclable, and it's every other week. Well, over a course like Christmas and New Year, where it went from being a Thursday to a Saturday, well, now it's it's 2 weeks and a bit. That's a lot of stuff, especially for those with a family. I mean, being single, it's not quite so bad for me, and chances are I'll survive. But I've got a pile of boxes I need to kill in my house. I've got a huge pile of boxes I need to kill in the house. And I keep meaning to do it, which is where my shit pile comes from. Because, well, I need to kill it, and it's going to be more than I can put in my thing for the bin men. So that it kind of is a perpetual problem, because, you know, each time I manage to do a load, I've managed to gain a load more, and I can't win, really. So, anyway, we pulled the pins on that. That looks a bit better. I shall take a photograph of the day. Let's try and put those down a bit so that you can see what's going on. Camera. There we go. So yes, I'm going to call it a day. I wish you, definitely salute you, and I actually did salute you on your endeavours, so you do that. I'm going to put this away and order me some food, because I'd be hungry. And I didn't have takeout last week. I was a good girl. I ate lots of healthy things and chicken and vegetables and the like. So I have a desperate need for, as the man put it, things that will shorten my lifespan. I don't know what I'm going to have, but I've got a feeling I've got an £8 voucher. Well, actually, I know I've got a £50 voucher I could add from work, because they gave us a voucher for Christmas for £50. And the only company on the entire list that I would likely use is Just Eat. So I could have a free meal. And as we all know, a free meal is a free meal. It's a gorgeous thing. Oh, mind you, I've got half a fucking pig in my fridge. I have about 12 packs of bacon, and I really need to do some of that. I shall do that over the weekend. Anyway, it's been a great time. I've enjoyed talking to you all. I hope for those who have been lurking that you were interested and will come back. Feel free to follow, and hopefully I shall be back tomorrow. Take care. Goodbye.